Hello and welcome to the 27th video in the PHP e-commerce series. My name is Curtis and this is Free Skills. Well, I'm excited about this video and the next few videos. In fact, I think it's going to take 6 videos, but we're going to get through the shopping cart and actually charging credit cards and making money. And so this is what we've all been waiting for, so let's dive right in. So right here in the database, we need to add a new table. So I'm just using PHP and I'm going to add a new table, and we're going to call that table cart. Now we need four columns in this table. The first one's just going to be ID, like we always do, and we're going to give that an auto increment with a primary index. We're going to make it the primary index. The next thing that we're going to do is add a field called items, and we're going to set that equal to text because we're going to store JSON objects or JSON strings there, so we need kind of a lot of room, and we need it to be variable characters, but we don't want to set this to a varchar with, say, 255 because we very well may exceed 255 characters, and we don't want that to get truncated because that will break. So then the next we're going to do a we can't use date for a name in SQL because that's a reserved name, but we're going to put expire date. We'll set that equal to date time, and then for the last field we're going to set that to paid, and we're going to store whether or not this shopping cart item has been paid for or not. So we're just going to set that to a tiny int. That's totally fine, and then for default we're going to do as defined and 0, and we'll use kind of a boolean here, and we'll use, say, 1. We'll set that to 1 when it's paid. So I hit save now. If I go to the structure of the site here in cart, we can see that everything's set up. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump over to our code, and we're going to be primarily working in 3 files in this video. One we haven't created yet, and the other 2 is includes detail modal and includes footer.php. What we need to do we need to make some changes here, and we're kind of bounce back and forth between the footer and the details modal. The first thing that we want to do is in the form element here in the modal, we need to give this an ID. We're just going to give this add underscore product underscore form. Okay, just to give it an ID. And then what we want to do is down here in this button where we have this add to cart, we're going to get rid of this type of submit. We don't want the form to be submitted, but rather we want to call an on-click event and fire off a JavaScript function that we're going to create. And we'll just call this function add to cart, excuse me, and then we'll say return false. Okay, let's see. The next thing I want to do is I want to have a place here under this div of row. Let's add a span, and we'll give this span an ID of modal underscore errors. We're not going to put anything in that span, but we want a place to put some errors if they try to do things like order more product than what's available. I'm going to give this a class equal to bg danger, just to give it that red background. I think that's probably most of what we need to change in our details modal, but we're having it fire off a function that we haven't created yet. And we want to be able to add things to cart anywhere on the site, so we're going to add that in the footer here. And right here in our footer we have a function called details modal. So find that closing curly brace on the details modal there, and skip down a few lines after that, but still inside of your script tag, and we're going to add a new function. This function is add to cart. Okay. And just to see if it's working, let's do alert works. Alright, save that. Let's go ahead and go to the site here and refresh the page and click this, and then we'll hit add to cart, and we get an alert that says works. So if you don't get that, it probably means you have a typo in your probably a typo in where you're calling the onClick event or in the actual function name. So check that out. The next thing that we want to be able to do is grab this quantity and the size here, and we want to check it, if everything's on the up and up, and if it's not, we want to be able to display an error up here before we add it to the cart. So let's get to work on our add to cart function. Now, obviously we don't want to alert works. We'll just get rid of that. That was just for demonstration purposes and to make sure you don't have any typos. I like to do that sort of thing when we're calling functions, just to make sure that we're starting the function off right, and then we know later if we wait to test it and it doesn't work, we might think it's code inside of the function. So anyway, the first thing I want to do in my function is if there are any errors set from a previous attempt to add to a cart, we want to go ahead and clear those out. So in order to do that, we're just going to set the HTML of our modal errors. Okay, and we'll set that just to a blank string. Alright, and the next thing we're going to do is grab our values from our form, and we're going to say var size is equal to the value of size, whoops, not HTML, value rather. Okay, and we do that same thing for quantity. Grab the value. Okay, and we're also going to create an available. Just grab that as well. Now you might be thinking to yourself, but there's not an available field in our form, and that's okay. We're going to take care of that. So we're just going to go ahead and add that now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to we'll create one more, and we're going to say a variable of error, and we're just going to set that equal to a blank string, and then we're going to create our data, and we're going to set equal to, we're going to grab the form, so we set that ID to what did we set that to? Let's take a look. That was in our form element right here, add product form. So add product form. And instead of value, what we're going to do is use a jQuery function called Serialize. And what that's going to do is take the values of the form and serialize those values into like get parameters so that we can pass that along. Okay, so we're going to do some checks, and we're going to check a few things, and if it passes, we're going to fire off an AJAX request to a parser file we haven't created. If it doesn't pass, then we're going to simply just add the error to our modal. So we need to be able to grab this available. So let's save this, and let's go back to our details modal. In our details modal, in the form element here, we're going to add a hidden input. So we'll do input with a type equal hidden. We're going to give it a name of available, and we're going to also give it an ID of available. Okay, and we're going to give it a value of a blank string for now, because we want to be able to put the value into this. Now, one other thing that we might as well do while we're right here is let's go ahead and create one more input, and we'll do a type equals hidden. Okay, we'll do name equals product ID, and we will give that a value equal to, and inside of here we're going to do an echo statement, and we're just going to echo ID. Okay, now this ID is coming from right here, the posted ID, so we already have the product ID right here, so we're just going to make use of that variable once again in our hidden element right here, so that value will be equal to the product ID. Okay, so that's cool, that's what we want. What we also need to do is down here in our script tags, right here above the close function modal, we're going to create a variable there, and this variable, well, we need to listen for when the size changes, because when the size is changed we need to figure out how many are available and then plug that in. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an event listener. Oops. And we want to know size. Well, on change, okay, when that has changed, then we want to fire off an anonymous function. Okay, and we're going to set var available equal to jQuery size, and then what we can do is select the option selected right there, and then we can grab the data available. Okay, so that needs to go on the outside of that. So what's happening? We don't have that data available to us yet, but what's really cool is in HTML where we can add a data attribute to it. So in this select, for each one of these, we're going to add a new, right here outside of this value, we're going to add a new attribute, and we're going to put data and then hyphen, and you put whatever the data name you're going to do. So we're going to say available. Okay, that's where we're going to get that, and we'll make that equal to we want to make that equal to break out of our PHP tags, and we're going to use available. This actually makes more sense to call this available, and then we'll change it right here as well. That way we can make use of this right here, and that's going to add it to this data attribute we just add. So we did a data available equals, and then it's going to plug into there this available number. Okay, so now that on this event change, when that's changed, we're going to have access to this available JavaScript variable, and it's being set with this data attribute right here. Okay, so that's how that works. So what we need to do is very simple, is we're going to add that to our available ID, our input that we did. So value then, and we're going to set that value equal to available. So what that's going to do is every time we change that size and that drop down, it's going to fire that function, and then it's going to grab this data available that's of the selected item, and then, or the selected size, and then it's going to plug that value right here into our available value. Okay, so then when then we have access to that available through our function here, right here, because we're grabbing the value right there. So now that's really cool, because what that allows us to do is to make checks and see if they're trying to get more than more than is available, and we can tell them, hey, that's not available. So the first thing I want to do though is make sure they've actually filled out all the forms, or the form elements, or the inputs. So we're just going to do an if statement here, and we're going to say if size is equal to a blank string, okay, or we'll say if quantity is equal to a blank string, and we'll do one more check in there, or if quantity is equal to 0. If any of those are true, then what we want to do is we're going to add to it our error. So we'd say error plus equal, and we'll say we just add some HTML in here, so we'll give it a class of text danger and text center. Okay, and what do we want to say inside of there? We're just going to say something like you must choose a size and quantity. Okay, so let's see if that works now. Well, what we want to do is just return out of this function if we have an error, because we don't want to continue on with the rest of the function if there's an error. So we'll just put return. So let's refresh now. Let's try to add something to the cart without filling in these. Alright, so let's see what happened here. Okay, so what's going on? I forgot to actually add this. So all we need to do here is jQuery, and we're going to say modal underscore errors dot HTML, and then we're going to pass in that error variable there. Alright, so if I refresh now and we try to add that, let's refresh the page, go ahead and try again. Okay, so let's carry on with our form validation here. So what I want to do now is we're going to do, after that if statement, we'll do an else if. Okay, and so let's see, in JavaScript you got to have a space with the else if. It's not like PHP, they're just, you can put them together like that. And what we want to do here is we're actually going to want to check if quantity is greater than available, because if they're trying to get more than that's available, we don't want that to happen. So we're just going to error, we'll add to that error, and we're just gonna just copy all of this, and we'll just change that message here. Oops. Text center, and we're going to say there are only, and we're going to do is break out of the string there, and we're going to put available. There are only available. Okay, so let's see what happens there. So if I refresh the page now, and we'll pick size 8, there's 2 available, but let's try 3. The other thing, you always have to actually put the error in place. So sorry about that. Alright, refresh, try it one more time. We're going to try to give ourselves 3 of these, but we know there's only 2 available, and it says there are only 2 available. If I put that back down to 2, we get no errors. So that's exactly what we want. Alright, so now what we can do is actually process this. So after this else if right here, we're just going to say else, Actually, one other thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and break out of this. So we're going to put return right there inside of that else if. So if there's an error, we want to return. So we don't want to continue on with this. So now what we can do is just jQuery.ajax. Okay, and for the URL, we're going to say tutorial, which is my base, my root folder, and in the admin area we have a parsers folder, and we're going to put add_cart.php. Okay, that's our URL. And then for method, we're going to go ahead and do post, and then data, we'll do data, and then for success, do an anonymous function, and error. We will also do anonymous function, but here we're just going to put an alert, and we're going to say something went wrong. Okay, so right now what should happen is something should go wrong because we don't have this parser file created yet. So let's just go now and refresh the page and make this validate. So we're going to get 2 of these. We got something went wrong. Something's going wrong because we don't actually have that file. But if I go and create that file really quick, so in the admin area, parsers. So inside of parsers, we're going to create a new file. We're just going to call that file add_cart.php. So now we have the file. We don't need to put anything in it. We just need to refresh and check and make sure that our path is correct there, and nothing happened. We didn't get that alert, but let's try to open up this inspector, and we can go to network and we'll just click on preserve log. Alright, and then I'm going to refresh the page and go ahead now, add one, hit add to cart, and now go, and you can see that we have 2 Ajax calls made here, or network calls. This details modal, actually pulled up our modal when we clicked on it, and this add cart now, if we click on that, we have a 200. Now a 200 for status code means success. It's okay that the file was there, it made it to the file. And if we look down here to our form data, we have our product ID, how many is available, quantity that we're ordering, and the size. So that's all the information that we need to pass to that parser file in order for that to work. Alright, so we need to create this parser file here. We've already created it, but we need to add the code to it. But first, we need to take care of a few things that we're going to need here, and we're going to go ahead and get our core init.php file back open and our config.php file. Okay, so in the config PHP, what we want to do is define a few more constants, and this is just going to save us some time later. So what we're going to define here is we'll do cart cookie, and we'll define that as just a random string. So I'm just going to start mine out with just do some random strings, and don't put any symbols, but do some numbers, some uppercase, some lowercase, and kind of make it a good 10, 12 to 15 characters. That's not something we're going to have to remember, because obviously we're setting a constant, and we could call that at any time in the program because we've included this config.php on every page. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is set an expire date for my cookie. So I'm just going to say cart cookie expire, and expire dates on cookies are they are in seconds. So what I want to do is take the time right now. So we'll just do time. Oops. We'll do time, and then we want to add to time. There are 86,400 seconds in a day. So we can do that times 30 days is how long I want my shopping carts to be in existence in the form of a cookie. Okay, and so that is it on our config file. So we've defined the cart cookie, which will be this, and we've defined the cart cookie expire, which is now plus 30 days in seconds. Okay, so the next thing that we have to do is in our init.php is we need to create a cart ID if it exists. So right here above this is set session, we're going to go ahead and create cart underscore ID, and we're going to set that equal to a blank string. And then underneath that, we're going to do just an if statement, and we're going to say if is set, and then we're going to say dollar underscore cookie. Oops, dollar underscore cookie, and we are going to, for the cookie, we got our constant now, so we can just say cart cookie. Man, I can't type today. I'm using a different computer than I would use all day at work, so the keyboard keys are in a little bit different spot, just enough to screw me up. So sorry for the horrible typing here. So if that cookie is set, then what we want to do is we want to set the cart ID equal to, and we're going to go ahead and run that through a sanitize function, because people can mess with their cookies, so we don't want them to do anything kind of funky there. So we'll do our sanitize function, and we're going to pass in the dollar underscore cookie, and then cart cookie. Alright, so what that does, it just checks if the cookie is if this cookie exists, then it's going to set that equal to cart ID, because all we're going to store in our cookie is the cart ID, and that cart ID corresponds with the ID here in the database table. So we'll store a cart ID as a cookie on the client's computer for 30 days. When they come to our site, we'll check for that cart to exist. If it does, then we'll be able to draw the items from their cart right here out of the database, because we're going to store the carts in the database. Alright, so that's all we need to do in the init.php. So then let's go ahead and head over to our add cart. So let's go ahead and open our PHP tags here, and open our PHP tags, and we're going to say we need to require in. We'll do a require once, and we're going to say dollar underscore server. Man alive, I can't type tonight. Dollar underscore server, and we're going to call the document root. Whoa. Okay, document root, and we're going to concatenate onto that / the root file of our program, core init.php. So now that we have core init, we have access to our database and our helpers and our cart ID variable that we just set. So what we want to do here is we want to go ahead and grab all of our variables from our post data. Now if you remember our post data here, we got product ID, available, quantity, and size sent to us. So we can go ahead and grab those, and we'll just say product ID is equal to, and we're going to sanitize all of our input here, dollar underscore post product ID. Okay. We're going to keep going with that. So the next one is size. Okay. Probably helped me out a lot to copy and paste since I can't type tonight. The next one we're going to grab here is our available. Okay, and we will grab the quantity. Alright. The next thing that I want to set up is an empty array, so we're going to call that item. We're going to put that as an empty array. And then what we want to do is add to that array another array. Okay, so we're going to put a multi-dimensional array here for each item, and this array we're going to make it an associative array. So what we want to do is just do ID, and we're going to set that equal to product ID, and then we'll do size. We'll set that equal to size, and we'll do quantity. We'll set that equal to quantity. Okay, and just to clean this up a little bit, I'm going to line these up. I don't know if that makes it more readable or not. I guess it kind of does. A lot of people like to do that. So next, what we need to do is set a variable called domain. Now what this is going to do is, say cookies are kind of weird, especially if you're using you know, a local host. They need, for security reasons, Chrome and other browsers will not accept a domain like localhost. So we won't be able to set a cookie or access a cookie. And even if you can set a cookie, sometimes it's weird accessing it. So we're going to have to create this little, what we're going to do is create a little bit of a ternary operator here. And what we want to do is do a check. Okay, and we're going to check basically if it's a localhost or not. So we're going to say if $_server, okay, of HTTP host, not plus host, underscore host, okay, HTTP host. Now, if that is not equal to localhost, then what we want to do is we want to add a period here, because, well, older browsers need like to begin with a dot. So we're just going to add that period, and then we're going to concatenate on $_server. I know this is kind of confusing, but just bear with me. This is one of the things that took so long for these videos to come out, because I had a difficult time getting the cookies to work on localhost, and the fix for that was this little line right here that we're writing. All right, this opening and closing parenthesis there. But what this is going to do is check if the HTTP host is not localhost, then it's going to be, we're going to set domain equal to the HTTP host, okay, with the period before it for older browser compatibility. And then if it is equal to localhost, we're just going to set domain equal to false. Okay, so that'll take care of that. Now the first thing that we want to do is we want to say query is equal to db query, and we want to select all from products where ID is equal to product ID. So then our product then is going to be equal to MySQLi fetch associative array, and we're going to pass it in that query. Alright, so the next thing that I want to do is once we grab that product, let's just go ahead and set our session here, our session variable, and we're going to set the session of success flash. We're going to set that equal to, we'll do product title, and then we'll concatenate on a space added to your cart. We could do something like was added to your cart or something like that. Whatever you want to put there as a message. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is we want to check to see if the cookie, if the cart cookie exists. Okay, so all we have to do there, Alright, all we have to do there is an if statement, and we're just going to say if cart ID is not equal to a blank string. Then we're going to do something. Okay, so if it's not equal to a blank string, that means that there's already a cart set and we need to update the cart and add another product to it. So we're going to do all that in here, but first we'll do an else statement here, because if the cart cookie does equal 0 or a blank string, we need to add the cart to the database and set cookie. Okay, so let's get busy on that. We have that item array right here. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to put items JSON. Okay, and I'm going to set that equal to JSON encode, and I'm going to pass that in item. Okay, so then what I want to do is grab my cart expire. I want to create that. This is not going to be the cookie expire. This is going to be the date that's stored in the database. It's a little bit different format. You don't store that in seconds. So what we're going to do is we're going to say date, and we're going to set up the format that the database expects, and that'll be capital Y -M -D space capital H :I :S. Alright, so then what we want to do for the second parameter is we're going to string to time, and then we're going to plus 30 days. Okay, so it's going to take today, right now's time, and add 30 days to it, and format it in year, month, date, hour, minute, seconds, and put that. We'll have that variable now that we can shove in the database. Alright, so now that we have those things, we can go ahead and say db query, and we want to say insert into cart, and we'll say values. Okay, so what we want to add here is into the items and expire date. Okay, now for the values there, we've got our items JSON string, so we're just going to put items underscore JSON, okay, and then we'll say comma, and we'll say cart expire. Alright, so that will insert the cart items into our database. The next thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and set our cart ID. Okay, so cart ID is going to equal our DB insert ID, and that returns the last inserted ID in the database, and that's going to set that equal to the cart ID. So we're grabbing the last inserted ID from this database element. So this insert ID is a function to do that. Okay, so if you haven't seen that before, that's a pretty nifty little function. And then the last thing that we need to do is actually we need to set the cookie. Okay, that's a pre-built PHP function, and we're going to give it some parameters. The first parameter that we need to give it is the name of the cookie. So ours is cart cookie that we've defined. Okay, the next one is going to be the value of the cookie. So in our case, it's going to be cart ID. Alright, and then we're going to give it the expire date. So we already set that up in the config file, so that's cart cookie expire. And then we're going to set it up a path where we're just going to say root for our path. And then the next thing that we need to pass it is this domain, which will either be false or it will be, if it's localhost, that'll be equal to false. If it's not, it's going to be equal to our HTTP host for our domain. And then for security, we're just going to put, now we're turning security off with this false here. This will allow us to set cookies and access them on localhost. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to go ahead and close my PHP here. So that's all we need to do to add to go ahead and add it to our database. So let's just go ahead and try that out. This part here shouldn't run yet because we don't have a cart ID set, but we'll come back and fill this in just a moment. Okay, so let's go back to our database, or our website here, and let's just try to add this hoodie. Okay, so we'll add just one small. Okay, so let's see what happened here. Now, one weird thing about cookies is that the page needs to refresh for the cookie to be accessible. And so to make that happen, let's go back to our code here, and in our footer, on success here in our add to cart function, and here's our AJAX request here. On success, we need to do something here, and what we want to do is reload the page. And so the JavaScript function to do that is just location dot reload, and that's it. So that's all we're going to do on success. Okay, so then let's go back now. First, let's check our database here, and if I browse, we do have an item here. So it's ID of 1, and you can see that our product ID that we entered was 15. The size is small, and the quantity was 1. We have an expire date set here, which is 30 days from today, and we have paid 0 because our default value there. What should also, if I refresh the page once, you see that I get this session, and it said striped hoodie was added to your cart. And now, if I go ahead and check my resources in the editor and go to cookies, we should have right here, yeah. So we have a cookie. Here's our cookie right here, and it's got a value of 1, which was our ID in our database. And you can see that our path was our domain is localhost and our path is just the root directory. Okay, I'm not sure what this is from. Oh, that's probably me being logged in. I'm gonna delete that. Alright, so this cookie here is what we have. So now, if we were to add another item, well, nothing's gonna happen now because it's gonna get to that point in the let's see, let's just try to add 2 of these. I did go ahead and set our session for it, but if I go to the database now, hit browse, nothing's changed here, and that's because, you know, we have a cart ID set. So let's go ahead now and finish up this parser file by filling in this right here. So if there is a cart ID set, what we're going to want to do is we're going to grab that cart first of all. So we're going to do a cart query. So I'm going to say cart queue is equal to db query, and we're going to say select star or select all from cart where ID is equal to, and then cart ID. Okay, so it's going to grab that. That will be our query there. So then we can say cart then is equal to my SQLi underscore fetch associative array, and then we're going to pass it in our cart queue. Now we're going to get back from that is we're going to get our items and our ID and everything like that. But what I want to do is grab this previous items that's in our cart already. We're going to now that's going to be equal to it's going to be equal to cart items. Okay, that's from our field in our database. But actually, what I want to do is JSON decode that because that's JSON encoded. So I want to turn that to an associative array. So I just need to say JSON decode. Okay, and we'll wrap this just like that. Now, as a second parameter in that, I can pass that true, and that's going to return an associative array, not an object. Okay, so that's one thing you're going to want to do for this example. You may choose to do something different in the future if you want objects. I like to work with associative arrays. I feel like it's a little easier for me. So now we have these previous items, and what I need to do is set an initial. We need to see if the item that we're adding matches any of the items in the database. So we're just going to set that equal to 0 to start out with, just so we don't have any undefined variables. And then what we're going to do is we're also going to create a new array. We're going to call it new items. Okay, so this is going to be equal to an array. Oops. And we're going to do a for each loop. Now this for each loop, what we want to do is say for each item, well, for each previous item, okay, previous items, as we'll just say p item. What do we want to do? Well, we're going to do a check first. The check is going to be let's see. We want to check if the first item in the array, because see up here we set this array, and this is array within an array. So we got to set if. We're doing if statement here, and we're going to say if item with an index of 0, because that's our first and only element, because we're adding one product at a time. Okay, and we need to know if that ID, we're checking that ID. So it's, like I said, it's a multi-dimensional array, and we're checking against p item ID. So if that is true, okay, and then the other thing is we only want to check if it's the same size and the same ID. So we need to do an AND statement here. So if the item ID and the size match, so then we could say item size equals p item size. Okay? If all that's true, then we're going to add to it. So if those are equal, what are we going to do? Well, then we're going to say p item quantity. Okay? We're going to say that equals p item quantity plus item in the 0th array quantity. Alright, so then what we want to do is a check, okay, within that if statement. So we're going to say if, because if we don't do this check, what they can do is just keep going back to our form or the page and add one at a time and get past our little validation check and get more than what's available in the shopping cart. So we need to check for that. So we're going to say if p item quantity, okay, if that is greater than available, okay, so we have this available passed to us. So if that is greater than available, then what we want to do is we're going to just set p item quantity. Alright, we're just going to set that equal to available. So if they try to get more than is available, it's just going to reset that to the available amount. Okay? And then what we want to do is outside of that if statement right here, we're going to say item match. Okay? Did I set that up before? Yeah, I called this item equals 0. This is supposed to be item match. Sorry about that. Match equals 0. So then, if those items do match, we need to set that equal to 1 because we're going to do a check on that. And then, what we want to do is, right here, we're going to say new items, okay, is equal to p item. Alright? So now we'll have the quantity set. So basically what happens if you've already added one of these of the same size to the shopping cart, it's going to just update the quantity and then we'll dump that back in the database. Now, so next, after our check here, or after our for each loop of our previous items, what we're going to do is we're going to do another check, and we're going to say if item match does not equal 1. So in other words, if this is a new item, if the size or the ID does not match, then we're going to do what's in here. So what we need to do there is just say new items is equal to an array merge. And what we're going to do is we're going to merge our item with our previous items, okay? So we have previous items in the shopping cart already, and then we have this new item that we set up at the top of the page right here, this array. We're going to merge that with our previous items if they don't match. If they're different items, we're just adding to the array. Okay? So now we have new items either set up here by updating the quantity, or new items here by merging. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is we're going to JSON encode that again. So we're just going to say items JSON. Okay, and we're going to say that equals JSON encode, and we're going to encode new items. Okay, that gives us a JSON encoded string there that or object or string that we can add to our database. And then we need to set our cart expire. Really, we could have set this at the top of the page and not done it twice. That's probably the smarter way to do it, but that's okay, we'll just do it here. So cart expire is going to be equal to date, and we have to give it our format. So year-month-d space h:(i:)s. And then for a second array, we're just going to do string to time, and we're going to say plus 30 days. Okay. Then what we can do is just go ahead and run our database query. And our database query, we're going to say, this time we're going to update cart set, and then we're going to set items equal to items JSON, and then we want to say comma expire date is equal to expire cart expire. Okay, and then really important, we never want to forget the condition clause on an update, otherwise it will update every instance in our database. So we're going to say where ID is equal to, okay, cart ID. Alright, so now we have our database updated. The next thing that we want to do is we're going to unset our cookie. So to unset a cookie, you just set the cookie again. And, oops, forgot my I. So you set the cookie, and we're going to set, well, what cookie we want to set. First one we're going to set is cart_cookie. Okay, and we're going to set that equal to a blank string. So comma blank string, and then we're going to set that the expire date to just 1. Okay, that's going to just expire the cookie instantly. And then we'll set the path, and then we're going to set the domain, and then we're going to say false. Okay, so that sets that basically destroys the cookie. So now it's expired, and now we can set the cookie again, and we're going to say cart_cookie, and we're going to set that equal to cart ID, and we're going to set that expire date to cart cookie expire, and we'll say root directory, we'll say domain, and false. Okay, so that's it. That's all we're going to do there. Okay, so let's go back now to our page. Let's take a look at our items. We have one item in our database now, so let's keep a lookout for that, and let's add another item. So let's add this purse here. I'm gonna add one of these. Actually, let's add 2 of these. There's 9 available. Hit add to cart. You see page is refreshed. I don't see my message though. Let's refresh this and see if our cart Okay, so something's failed there. Okay, so the reason this isn't working is I have a syntax error, and I found that by just navigating to the add cart parser, and I got this syntax error on line 38, and that is because on line 37 I did not put my semicolon. So now let's see if that makes a difference. My guess is that it will, unless I have another. So let's try to add our purse this time. Okay, so now it says average purse was added to your cart, and let's browse that, and now we can see that we have 2 items here, ID 9 and 15, small, quantity 1. So it's just adding these items to the cart. Now it's added the new item in front of the other item, and that's because, and that's the way I want it. I want to have the newest items on top, I think. And that's because of an array merge right here. So that array merge, the new item happened first and then previous items. So let's go ahead and just check this by adding something that we've already added. Like, let's add another purse and see if it updates the quantity rather than adding a separate entry. So let's add 2 more of these. Okay, now let's go and check our database. Yep, and so now you see the ID of 9, which is our purse, size NA, and now we have a quantity equal to 3 right there. So this seems to be working really well. So that's, you know, stored here in the database, and we know that our cookie's set because it's not adding a new row in our database. It's simply updating this ID right here. So what would happen if I go to my resources and I kill this cookie? So I'm just going to delete that cookie. Now if I go to the page and I refresh, I'm gonna go ahead and add this skirt right here. Now what's going to happen is this skirt is going to set a new cookie, and in fact it's going to add another row in the database, and then 2 because that cookie is not set anymore, and I have this new shopping cart item in my database. And if I go here now to resources, you can see my value is equal to that cart ID 2, and that's exactly the functionality that we want. So I know this is a little confusing at this point, but what we've done in this video is we've added the ability to add products to our database and then set a cookie equal to the product ID in that cart, or the cart ID. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to actually create our shopping cart to display these items, and then start working on updating, like adding more or subtracting away from the cart, and then we'll move on to the actual checkout experience. And so I'm looking forward to that, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please comment, like, and subscribe. And if not, I probably won't see you again anyway. But if you do like it, I'll see you in the next video, and we're going to continue with displaying our shopping cart items. Thank you very much. Have a good night.